morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. How amazing is it to be back at Top Drawer in real life? Yeah? Isn't it great to see everybody? I absolutely can't wait. So I am joined by some amazing people this morning. We have got Janet from Janet's List, we've got Elaine from Pickle Ginger, and we've got Paul from Earl Beast, and I'm Lisa May, and I run Lisa May & Co. So today we're going to be chatting to you and getting lots of great conversations about the modern retailer, and I think this is so important as we're kind of like really stepping into that post-pandemic world and just really understanding all the different things that you guys can do in order to really sort of grow and support and move your businesses forward. And I am in charge of a clicker, which is exciting for everyone involved. So the first thing that I want to talk about is holistic marketing, and I think that sometimes what I tend to find is that people create content for social media. They create content for their emails, they create content for their websites, and actually what you want to be doing is you really want to be creating holistic content and pushing it out into the various different places, but it's come from one sort of really consistent authoritative place. And I know that Janet, you've got some amazing experience in this. This is definitely something that within your business you really try to put everything at the epicenter, so you're really sort of nurturing and giving your customers that phenomenal customer journey. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so that's loud. The issue of content is something that I've had to evolve over the years. So obviously Instagram is something that we use quite readily, but with the pandemic and realizing that we live a lot of our lives online, the shift of people towards using video made me really take a step back at the start of 2021 and just think about what would be a content anchor for me. And I never ever thought that I would be a YouTuber, but when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, actually, YouTube gives me the opportunity to really demonstrate what I know, which is deep knowledge of brands by Black women and women of color. It requires you to really be considerate and thoughtful about the content that you're going to put out. It, just by the nature of YouTube as a channel, means that your content will keep working for you even when you're not able to do it yourself. And the sheer effort of producing content on YouTube means that you're actually going to go to the trouble of sharing it out and repurposing it across all of the different platforms. So although Instagram was a very natural platform for me, going down the YouTube route is something that I can see in the long term is going to pay the dividends. And it just means that that content works for you. So even as small businesses, when you're busy with your physical retail, when you're busy with your customers, or when you have to take time out because of the realities of the pandemic, the content will keep working for you.
Yeah, and I love that word you used at the beginning, anchor. Like it's what anchors it, and then where does that get distributed throughout? So yeah, thank you so much. So now what I want to talk about, still on about content marketing, is actually what is content. And I think sometimes, definitely through the pandemic, we were led to believe that great content is showing our audience what we're having for our breakfast on a morning and the dog walk. And actually sometimes it's really not that. And we need to be able to share content that echoes our brand values and why we do what we do, and all that great stuff that's going to allow our audience to really connect with us. And a gentleman who's done that very well throughout the pandemic is Paul. Talk to us about why that's part of your strategy.
I think for us, when it came to content, it started with our audience. So certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, we had our stores closed like many people did, and you start to just think about how do we tell that story of what it is we're doing. And yeah, naturally the day-to-day became quite mundane for a lot of people. But I think we went back to an exercise we've done around plotting who our audiences are and who the kind of 5 core customers are and what they'd be interested in. And so we started to create a lot of things that would recreate the environment that we try to deliver in store, whether that was sharing playlists or recipes or, you know, telling the stories behind the brand. And then we created series of content that we thought would be relevant to people at that time. So we did a whole series around ritual over routine and enjoying the everyday. And that certainly was something that I think resonated with customers and allowed them to feel like they were in some way still in the store. So it was content first, rather than being, this is the product, or rather than being, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. It was more about kind of how do we deliver what we aim to do in the store.
Yeah, and I think it's about that nurturing. I think you can nurture your audience in a much bigger way if you're serving them rather than just constantly selling and just showing up and being like, buy this, no, buy this, no, buy this now. I think it's good that if you've got those consistent messages that you're talking about and it's sort of like they resonate with your audience in a bigger way. I know that this is something you've done a lot of over the post-pandemic.
Yes, I mean, with Janet's List, our aim is to help people to discover and buy from amazing brands by Black women and women of color. But the fundamental issue that we're dealing with is the lack of diversity in business. It's plain and simple. It's a very serious topic, but shopping is fun. Shopping is something that people enjoy, and so we have to bridge those two things together. And so for me, it's a sense of really bringing the energy of culture. You know, our Instagram will have polls, it will be fun, and it reflects the environment in the shop as well. There's always a vibe, there's always laughter, but at the same time, there's serious conversations taking place as well. You know, people come into the shop, you know, Adonika from my team is here, and people will say to us, but we don't need this anymore because this isn't an issue. And actually, at that moment, you really have to confront someone and have that conversation. So it's about, for us, it's using amazing brands and amazing products to take people on a journey where they really understand the reality of the landscape of business and walk with them on that journey. And, you know, at every pop-up shop, you have customers who come to every different shop, and you can see the evolution, you can see the journey, you can see using fun and curiosity to get people into the shop, and then once you're in the shop, you create that space for those serious conversations. So for us, we're always treading a careful balance, but we never lose sight of the message, which is there is a lack of diversity in business. We're doing something about it, and you have a responsibility to do your part as well.
And I think what makes that even harder, and as we shimmy on to strategy number 3, is that you've got to get that message and that content, and it's got to be across every channel. It's got to be omni-channel, or, you know, multiple touch points. You've really got to make sure that it's consistent. How important, Paul, is it to have that mixture between digital, omni-channel, just the physical? How important is that?
I think the pandemic taught us that it's a mix of both. I don't think our business would have survived had we not had our stores, and if it had just been an online platform. I think the people who really got behind us, certainly in the early days of the pandemic, were people who'd been through our stores. So whether it's a permanent physical space like we have in Coldbox Yard, or whether it's doing pop-ups, those physical environments can do a lot more for your brand than you're ever able to do with just a website alone. And, you know, that's why if you look at all these direct-to-consumer brands out there like Away, they're consistently trying to create pop-ups and engage with a community. So it's not one or the other. And I think, you know, from our perspective, we've always really believed in physical retail. And certainly, you know, we came out of the pandemic thinking, okay, now there's a real opportunity to open more spaces rather than to go, oh, you know, we know online's working, let's just focus on that. And certainly, online, I think, has an opportunity to be much more scalable. But I believe that the future of retail is very experience-driven, and you can only have conversations to a certain point online, and through content, you can never replicate the exact environment you create in-store on a website. And so I think for us, you know, we're opening another store pretty imminently in Redchurch Street in Shoreditch, because we know our customers are there, and we have plans to continue opening more stores, but certainly we've not kind of opened our doors again and thought, oh, it was nice to have the website and thanks for the support, but that's it. So we've kind of really pushed forward with having an even greater focus on content and content strategy, and how do we take what we do in stores and replicate it online. So I think, you know, the future for me is definitely like retailers' experience rather than retailers' transactional. But it's a mix of both. And I think, you know, whether that's using things like, you know, web chat, which actually has become quite a significant revenue driver for us. Having that ability to connect with consumers directly at their point of purchase online has certainly helped drive more sales. But then it's also, you it was trying to replicate as many of the things you do online in store and vice versa. So yeah, for us, we offer free shipping on orders over 30 online. There was no reason why we shouldn't do that in store. And we've seen now that a lot of our bigger ticket items are actually being sent to a customer rather than taken away. But of course, what's the difference between them doing that online or in store? There isn't any, so we should still offer the same service. Yeah.
No, I was just sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask, when you're opening this new store, do you think that, and because just what you mentioned about it's not necessarily about shifting the stock, it's much more about an experience. Do you think the way that you measure the success of that second store and your original store, do you think that your measured approach to the success is different, and it isn't about what does the cash register look like at the end of the day versus how many people came in and experienced us and learned who we were and the dreaded data word? Do you think you'll look at it differently?
Yeah, I think we've started to look at our data a lot differently to how we looked at it before. It goes a lot further than just the revenue. We look at how many customers come through the door, but how many customers we register. And, our email database has grown like tenfold in the last year and a half, and people are actively engaging with it. And we do workshops as part of our business. Prior to the pandemic, honestly, that was pretty much the only time we used MailChimp. We now have a content strategy and use email marketing regularly, but we're also committed in store to growing that database and learning a lot more about our customers. And we're seeing that, I think, we certainly saw people come to the stores since who had only discovered us online, but we also know the value of kind of taking that customer and looking at their lifetime value. And having a store in Coldrock Yard close to St Pancras, it can be quite transient there, and it certainly has built up a community of people, but you also get, the family who's come on holiday, and they might never come back to our store again, but actually registering that customer and giving them an experience hopefully when they start to think about gifting, if we've got a consistent dialogue with that consumer, then there's still an opportunity for them to become our customer on a long-term basis. Yeah,
it's that nurturing again. The next thing that I really wanted to talk about, and I know that it's definitely something that we're slowly moving into, but Janet has seen an awful lot of success through pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and now is the idea of brand collaborations, and it's how we're stronger together, better in numbers, and how we can get these different eyes on our business, but we're not necessarily having to pay for them. We're working together. So talk to us about your experiences.
I think when we talk about modern retail, really we need to be thinking about collaborations, and we need to take a very sort of open and creative approach to it. I completely agree with what Paul said about physical retail. So our model is very much about very specific pop-ups at certain times of the year. And this Paul, there's a certain magic that you get in the shop that you just can't replicate that online in the same way, or it's quite difficult to do. And for many people who walk into a Janet's List pop-up shop, they've never been into a space where each and every product is by a brand, by a black woman or woman of color. It's the first time that's something that they are experiencing. And of course in 2020 there was a lot of discussion there was a racial reckoning, and it cut across all areas of our lives, including business. But we've been doing this since 2018. So you can imagine having these conversations with people who've never had that experience. And so a couple of brands recognize this. Somerset House, we had a collaboration with in 2020 between the two lockdowns, which was an amazing experience. We took over one wall in their main shop. Coco de Mer, who are all about products for powerful women, approached us and wanted to collaborate, and so we installed 12 brands in their shop in Covent Garden. And we both as brands had to sit down and identify our common ground and see how we were going to translate that to a physical space. Our friends at WOW were doing the first global 24-hour festival, and I was like, I can curate your marketplace for you. And so curated an amazing list of not just business brands, but also charities and other organizations that have been founded by amazing black women who would really benefit from the platform. And I think it's important to understand that in that situation, it benefits both parties. It isn't just a win for one. We're bringing a unique demographic, and a unique conversation, and the brands are offering something new and different for their existing customers, and so it's a win-win. So I think that's something in terms of modern retail that we would love to see more of. You know, in America, Ulta have a pop-up in Walmart, two retailers coming together.
Yeah.
I would love for an independent retailer like mine to work with a much bigger retailer. So if anyone here is in the room wants to have a conversation, I'm up for that.
But I think it's interesting what you say. It's not necessarily about the size or your social following or your product. That really doesn't matter. It's just making sure that you both are attracting and serving that particular client and that customer, and your audience is similar. So that's where the collaboration comes in. That you're gaining extra relevant eyes.
And just one more thing to add, because of 2020, you know, I had so many people approaching me, but all the brands we collaborated with are brands that had started the conversation before that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, everyone else, very happy for you to be on your journey and will come when the time is right. But those brands were already in that conversation with us.
Yeah.
And so that authenticity is a really important part of collaboration. It should just be like a yes, yes, yes type of situation.
It can't feel forced. It can't feel like, okay, so what are we going to get out of this? Like, it has to feel like it's a natural pairing of the two brands. Yeah, and you've done some amazing things, like some really great stunning things. So then, dun dun dun, feels like we now need to move on to a conversation that is incredibly daunting to a lot of people. And I have seen firsthand when I've started working with people, they share their SEO analytics, and I'm like, yes, it's great that you're ranking for that, but that's not really what you want to be ranking for. Like you've really, but we're intimidated by it, and I know a lot of smaller retailers and big retailers really are intimidated by SEO. But we have a fantastic lady here today who is going to be able to tell us the things that sit within your control that you shouldn't be intimidated by, and you can sort of action within your own sort of front door, but then also some of the things that maybe if you are looking to progress a bit more. So yeah, talk to us at SEO.
Hi everyone. So SEO, it's super sexy, it's not boring at all. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic sitting here with these amazing people and kind of seeing from me what I do with smaller kind of budget retailers and wholesalers is to be able to help them grow themselves. So it's kind of like DIY in a way, like SEO. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to, when we say the website and stuff, I always say as well, don't just rely on the website, but always do other, connecting the social media, the pop-ups, the tangible stuff. But when it comes to search engine optimization, why shouldn't any of you who own a brand have your keyword number one searched for by your perfect audience? I think in the experience of speaking to small budgets, first of all, they just kind of step away from SEO, not understanding it, thinking it's not for them. I started off many years ago. My kind of journey was working in law for 20 years, and then such a nerd. And then kind of going the SEO. I changed with the SEO in law, and it really drove me mad that I'd go out to agencies or something to kind of say, right, how can you help us with the content, the digital marketing? They'd be like, oh, it's £20,000, okay, a month, and we just give you data, and yeah, we're brilliant, and you'll never get this. And so they had this perception of dark magic, and it's not. It's just a process that any of us can do small bits of ourselves. And I think that's what I really want to convey to everyone, actually, is that actually you might not be able to do the techie bit, because that might be boring. Maybe you do like knowing on your website how to kind of speed it up. But actually content is, Google loves content. YouTube, like Jenna was saying, Google owns YouTube, so they love it if you kind of do that. But ultimately, there are bits of SEO, search engine optimization, that any of us can do ourselves. And it's not being afraid of it. It's just kind of being able to go, I'm just going to sit, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be able to do this myself. So it's very important for me.
And I think we mentioned at the beginning in terms of building holistic content, so starting our content in one place and not being for Instagram or email marketing. So I suppose when you're thinking of starting that content, before you even know where it's going to go, what are the sorts of things that you would advise people to be thinking about so that it's, when it does land on their website, it is doing the little things that we want it to do?
Yeah, okay, so it's a really good question. So say, for example, any of us have decided, right, our hobby is now going to turn into something that's going to make money and it's going to be of value to someone. We're going to help, our audience. And you think, okay, I can't afford to maybe have outsourced someone to build my website. I'm going to use a website builder, which is something like Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, something like that. A lot of us, I use WooCommerce and WordPress a lot, but I know a lot of people who are a bit like, oh, it's a bit nervous. Shopify, actually, they've got a very, very good marketing department and sales people because they're like, this is so easy. Yeah, it's not. And the coding is really complicated. So, take my hat off to Shopify because they've made a fortune, but actually it's not as easy as people think. Anyway, that's by the by. So I said, okay, choose whatever website platform you're going to do, and let's work around your audience and those keywords, because what we want is your website to have authority, to have some trust. And what Google, I say Google rather than Yahoo and Bing because they've got more than 92% of the monopoly. So, and they have so much money that they keep reinvesting to make it really compliant, make it really safe, make it super clever. So what I would always say to someone is like, okay, what are you going to put on your website? Retail is normally extraordinary, like you say, you want this really visual, beautiful thing. So that's, as a retailer, you want those images. I'd say actually, more than anything, pay for the photography and that kind of lifestyle. And then you've got to think of your keywords. And people say, what? Where do I get those keywords? I'm like, okay. So what it is a case of, it's that knowing your audience. It's really knowing the people you want to connect with. And I have so many people say, oh, it's everyone. Okay. So it's everyone. I'm like, but it's not. But it's someone who pays for that, someone the decision maker. And it's kind of just really thinking about, okay, let's put together, say, 10 words. And it might not just be words. It could be long tail keywords. So, for example, Janet's beautiful boots. Say I'm going to go on to Google. I'm just doing a Google search on my phone, and I'm like, I really want those boots. And I probably put shiny. I don't know that it's made of necessarily whatever it's made of. So I might just think shiny heel women's boots. Okay, how many millions and millions and millions of answers are going to come back? It's going to come out, Phoenix, next, whatever. There's no reason that any of us, that we can do it ourselves. It's just being really clever with it and using it. So it might be saying, actually, for feisty black women wanting, it's just because it is. Or it might be ginger-haired people desperate to get those kind of boots. It's kind of playing with the content. And that's what it's all about, is knowing your audience. So, for example, I would probably just emphasize that. Now, of course, when I say emphasize, I mean draw it out. So it could be square-toed, size 5, made in England, all these kind of things. And you can play with that with all your content. And when I say your content, that goes the content within either the product pages or the service pages. So content is huge because that's where you differentiate yourself from any other retailer. And what I'd always say as well is really be niche and campaign with, say, those boots. Say you want to really push those boots out. I say have a campaign on those boots and work around that. Do the visuals, do the social media, have the pop-ups, and then you bring the audience that you really want there. So back to the Google Analytics or the Google kind of stuff, what I say with keywords, if you came to me, for example, and you say, okay, homewares, but actually it's kitchen interior designs, you might think, oh my God, I've got all these, it's incredible, all these people are coming to my website, they're not converting, but yeah, they're coming, and wow, these impressions. They're not converting because they've landed on your site, it says homeware, but actually they're thinking something different rather than interior, I don't know, kitchen utensils or something. So it's been really, really savvy. And a lot of people are a bit nervous about Google Ad Planner because they think, oh, I'm going to have to do a Google ad. You don't have to do a Google ad. You should set up your own Google through a Gmail. Gmail is a part of Google. free. You don't have one, so you might have your own email or kind of thing. Set up your own Gmail account. Everything is free. I would literally play around with Google Ad Planner because you can actually see what ads would look like. It gives you a little tip when you're going through there, what it looks like. And actually you can kind of think, yeah, that's going to make sense. So, and then you don't have to click as you don't have to do an ad. Really kind of make use of that. But like anything, Google, everything is a strategy at the beginning. But what you don't want to be just putting something out there and hoping for the best. Everything is a strategy, from the keywords, from the YouTube, from the audience, from the social media, from the pop-ups. If you start with a strategy, your audience has keywords, then you've got something to build upon.
And I think as well, what I love what you said when you were talking about, you were describing the boots. I'm sat here going, yeah, that does need to be on the product page. Like, your product page is that conversion. It's that sales associate that stands at the back of your store that convinces them to buy. So actually again, I'm a big believer in doing one job and just doing it once, and it can go multiple places, right? Because, we're all wearing 2,000 hats, right? We don't have teams that can do different things. So I was just sat there going, yeah, like that language, that search terminology that you're putting to create that blog post that's going to get you highly ranking on Google is actually the content and the wording that you need to put into your product pages, because that's what she's searching for. That's how you're selling it to her. So again, it's that holistic approach. It's not doing one job for one place. It's doing it for multiple places, and it becomes consistent. Yeah. The other thing that I think and I know a lot of people are daunted by SEO. I think the other thing that people are incredibly daunted by is the numbers of the business and the data. And I think what I find, and this is just my own personal experience with the people that I work with, I sometimes feel that they think that I don't want to get too involved in the numbers because then I hold myself accountable for doing something about it. If I understand the numbers or if I look at them, then I've got to make decisions based upon them. And actually, 9 times out of 10, what I find is that people don't realise exactly how much they take just from looking at them and just from putting themselves in that uncomfortable position going, okay, so what did that do? And, how much traffic did that drive? And where is that traffic coming from? Oh, well, actually, it's coming from my SEO. So why am I spending 8 hours a day worrying about what I'm posting on social media when actually most of my traffic is coming from this place? And it's about understanding and just making yourselves more educated, and you don't have to be a whiz at the numbers. You don't have to understand everything, but actually it's just daring to look at it.
Do you know what? Because I'm really old, I did O-levels, and she's laughing, and no, I'm only 30, and maths was horrific. I can't do maths, so I tend to do very much the content, that kind of thing. But actually, so people assume I'm really techie, know a lot of maths because I do data. Well, that's not true. So that's what I'm saying to anyone, you can do it. I think it's understanding the data. I mean, I might get a little bit kind of overwhelmed, but actually we do it in sections. So you're absolutely right. For example, if we do a lot of Google ads as well, we do SEO and blend them because a lot of retail want to do the same. So the SEO is the long-term game, the ads are the quicker wins. But what we look at is basically your profit margins, and we can see from when we do like the keywords, there's something you can all download. It's free, if not like really very inexpensive a month, called Surfer SEO. And if you look on Google and download that, it actually shows you how, if you've got a keyword in there, and you can change the countries as well, so it's international or just UK, and you can put in like a keyword and it will say how many people are searching for that and what the bidding item would be. So for example, it might be $4, and you're thinking, okay, what would be my profit margin if I break down? Would I make a return on ad spend, which also converts to the SEO as well, because we think about keywords in the same thing. So when you're looking at your Google Analytics, and please tell me you all are, I know you'll be like, oh,
just nod.
Yeah, just nod. So yes.
Yeah,
because
I do that
yes,
regularly.
You are. Yes, you are. Yes, Elaine. I'm looking at my Google Analytics.
Do you think that your confidence with the numbers of your business has changed post-pandemic when you kind of had that solely digital aspect for a little bit?
So both Nico and our backgrounds were in advertising and media.
Oh, well, that's not fair.
I do think that may be... I think from that perspective it was always something that I was interested in. However, I think a lot of retailers, it starts way before your website, because for a lot of small independent retailers, the website has become much more important in the last year and a half. But when we speak to a lot of the stores we work with as stockists of our own brand, and we've got to know a lot of those people, I'm surprised how many people don't do that manually in store. They don't track how many people come through the door. They don't track how many of those people turn into a sale. They don't track just really simple things like that. Which
Like
if you
sellers,
start,
low sellers.
yeah, if you start doing that in your store and become aware of it in store, you realise that most people in here will use a platform like Shopify, and they do most of the work for you, and they provide benchmarks. So how are you performing versus other people in your category? How is this blog post performing versus other people? And I think the more you start to look at that data and become comfortable with it in the real world, you also start to go, well, what impact does this blog post have? What impact does, bringing in for example, like buying brands? I think for us, our strategy changed a little bit. We have our own brand, which is a big part of what we do, but we also, in our stores, bring in a lot of independence. In the last year and a half, we probably have changed our buying mindset to what are people searching for online.
Yeah.
And so our buying mindset has probably become a bit more digital first. And then there are some brands that we have which we don't really represent in a big way in the stores, but we know they sell very well for us online. And if people are searching for them online, then they're going to discover our brand and discover a lot of the independents that we work with as well, even though they're probably more likely to buy an independent ceramicist's work physically because it's a very tactile object. So I think data feels really scary, and you can straight away back away from it and be like, I'm not interested. Have I had any, how many sales have I had on my website today? How is it doing? But I think for anyone who's a store and has a physical store, just doing some of the basics around your customers in store straight away makes you more comfortable with data. And then I think that'll make you more comfortable with looking at the numbers online. Because often, we've probably all seen our websites grow in the last year and a half. But now it's like, how do you maintain and continue that growth, rather than just go, oh, well, it's my customer who shops in the store and they just bought on my website. Because in reality, it might be, but it also might not be at all. Yeah.
Could I add to that?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no one here who is in business during the pandemic and hasn't been forced to reckon with the numbers. I think, that's just the reality of the last couple of years. And for us, it's slightly different. The brands on our website are there because people have come to the shop and bought, and we've seen as a team how people respond to the product, how the questions they ask, the things they're interested in, and then we take that and that's what we put on the website. So in many ways, 2020-21 was a real challenge because not having the physical space kind of prevents you from doing that. But that's such a USP of the business that it's one of those things where you're like, it's a long game. I'm going to stick until we're able to get back to the physical space. But with the numbers, they're all interconnected. So thinking back to your points about SEO, so with press and with coverage, you will, at the back end of your website, know which pieces of press are bringing people to the website, which ones are not, and which ones are causing people to convert. When we work with influencers in store, we know because we can see on the Instagram stories and we can see on the follows who's having that impact and bring people to the store. Even though our YouTube channel is very tiny, you can see what people are searching for when they're coming to watch the videos. So putting all of those numbers down, even if you're not naturally a data person, which I am not, when you look at the patterns, then you can start to really draw conclusions, start to really listen to the signals. When you go to the bit in the website that tells you, and we have Shopify, which I must confess I love, it tells you what people are searching for on the website. If it's not there, that means that's something that people want. And so for me, that's a signal when I'm in top drawer to look for brands that are a match for that missing product category. So even if you don't know numbers, when you put them in front of you, there's nowhere to hide. They kind of give you the messages that you need to receive.
Yeah, I think it's about we all have our own skill sets, and we're all great at creating product or curating collections of product, and we don't necessarily see to ourselves, I'm great with the numbers, I'm going to understand it. But actually, I think by default you will pull something from it. Your digital buying versus your physical buying is a result of it, and who you decide to work with moving forward is a result of the numbers. But no,
just very quickly, just for anyone who's a small kind of business and looking, and I think as well about the data. For example, I'd always see where your audience is hitting your digital audience, where they're hitting, be it desktop or mobile, because then you can actually. So, for example, it's 90% mobile, and your website speaks. Maybe your images are a bit too large, or you've got too much video, or there's too many apps attached. That's what I find a lot. If you can code the Shopify and take away some of the apps, you just got to think a little bit strategically with that, because actually thinking, all right, everyone's on scrolling on thing, I'm going to make sure my mobile speed is quicker. So it's not just the data from the numbers, like you say, to be scared of. It's just thinking, okay, they're coming in from mobile, or they're coming desktop, that's okay. Then I'd also look at your competitors, because there's a lot of software out there I can give. I'm always doing it on my Instagram that any of us can look at, and we can see what are. Some people don't like to say competitors. People you compare yourself to, even where their audience is coming from as well. So you can think, okay, what's working from them? Why shouldn't it work with me? So listen, I mean, basically, I'd rather be a detective. I think I want to be in the police to be a detective, but I'm just an SEO. So yeah,
you're not just an SEO at all.
It's amazing SEO.
Thank you so much, all of you. You have been so helpful, and I hope you guys have got some use out of it. We will be hanging around for just a few minutes. If any of you do have any questions, please come up and see us. And I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.